Hello and welcome to the meeting of the Bowling Green City Schools, August 17th. This time, would you take the roll, please?
Thank you. Jill Carr. Here. Tracy Gomez.
Here.
Ryan Myers.
Here.
Jenny Stewart. Here. Roman Gear.
Here. At this time, would you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to recognize members of the media and representatives from the voters, Shar Sher and Joyce Kennedy. The media partners are Clint Core, the morning show. I'm Marie Thomas Baird of the Daily Sentinel Tribune, and Jan Larson McLaughlin of the BG Independent News. At this time, we have a board president report. I'm sorry, is there anybody that would like to address the board on agenda items? If not, I have a very short president's report. We're going to talk tonight about masking and keeping the city schools open and the children safe. Masking is important, but so is the vaccine. And we need to recognize that people have the right to have reasons to not be vaccinated. And this is something that we should not impose on anybody, but we can make a simple request. And the simple request is that if you are an unvaccinated individual who is eligible for the vaccine and have chosen not to be vaccinated, we recognize and respect that it is and should be your personal choice, and that you have a reason for not getting the shot. We would just ask you to please reconsider your reasons and think about how much your simple act of getting a vaccine could mean to Bowling Green City Schools and your community. Each new vaccination is one step closer to the schools and the BG community returning to normal. Thank you. Next, we have the superintendent report.
Thank you, President Gear, members of the board. Tomorrow night, we want to invite everyone out to Fanfare, which happens out at our stadium. And this is a chance for us to meet our teams, our fall sports teams, cheerleaders, band. There will be a ribbon cutting to open the new field. Let's see, we will be rededicating the Steve Beatty Track Memorial. Members of the class of 1967 will be in attendance, along with Steve's brothers, one of which lives in California, all coming back for the rededication of that memorial in memory of Steve Beatty. The high school scholarship committee will be providing dinner, so hot dogs, I think chips and a drink and a cookie. In that the menu, Dan?
Right.
Yep. Those will be on sale for families and anybody in attendance, and the proceeds to that go to the scholarship fund. We'll also be providing free ice cream as an additional dessert to the cookie. New teacher orientation. I want to first thank Angie Shaw and Jody Anderson for the work that they did putting together a 2-day orientation for our new staff. And they did a wonderful job. And we have a really bright group that we're welcoming to the district. We also want to thank the chamber and the different banks that sponsored the lunch today. And also Maria Simone, who was our guest speaker. Staff returns this Friday. All staff returns this Friday, and students will return Wednesday, August 25th. But please note that at the high school on Wednesday, August 25th, that is only freshmen, because that's our freshman experience. And that is on Wednesday, August 25th. And then our sophomores, juniors, and seniors will start attending the school the next day, Thursday, August 26th. All right. If I do this correctly, I ask you to shift your attention to the screen. Okay. I want to cover a few things. I know that we'll be discussing this later in the meeting, but I wanted to share some information. The first thing that I want to talk about yesterday, well, I switched it, but I didn't switch up there. Wait, no, that's not. I don't think I. No, one. It's showing here. No.
Is there a freeze button on the one?
No. Sorry. My fault. It wasn't technical difficulty, it was the user. Thank you. All right. This is a summary of Wood County Health Department's press conference yesterday. It was stressed over and over again that the overall goal in Wood County, as we have worked closely with the Wood County Health Department all summer, the goal amongst all of the districts was to keep our kids in school all year long with minimal interruption to their education. Mr. Robeson, our director, basically outlined the layers that can make that an achievable goal. Certainly stressing the vaccination, that if people get vaccinated, that provides a layer of protection. But keep in mind that any of these layers by themselves is not going to stop the spread, but collectively these things will help minimize and keep our kids in school, which is the goal. The second is wearing masks, whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. Again, another layer. We will maintain, or we will attempt to maintain 3-foot distancing in the classroom, 3 foot or more, maintaining 6 feet or more in common areas. We will encourage people to stay home when they're sick, and certainly if they've had exposure to COVID. We will be spending a lot of time identifying people that are exposed to COVID and working with the health department in how we proceed. We will continue to remind our students to regularly wash their hands, cover their nose and mouth by coughing or sneezing into their elbows. We will maximize ventilation as we did in the spring, and that is keeping windows open, especially in the 3 buildings of Conneaut, Kenwood, and the high school. while using box fans that some of our parents kindly donated to the district to make sure that we could provide adequate ventilation. And then, of course, our maintenance and custodial staff will continue to clean and disinfect throughout the day. So if our main goal, and schools' main goal should be educating kids and keeping kids in school, these would be the layers that we would need to have in place to make sure that's a successful school year. The next slide, and it's going to be probably difficult for people to see. It's basically a guideline for quarantines after exposure in a K-12 classroom. This is primarily the classroom exposure. What we want, we're going to start at the top there. The questions that need to be asked: does the school have all the following in place? Masking for students and staff, regardless of vaccination status. 2, strategies to maximize physical distancing, at least 3 feet between desks. And that's actually what the health department has shared. It's really 3 feet from nose to nose. So basically, how you're seated tonight would be how our classrooms would be set up. It's not from the edge of your chair to the edge of the chair next to you. It's from your nose to the person next to you's nose. So if it's 3 feet or greater, that's what we should be striving for. Item 3, documented COVID-19 prevention policies and procedures, which I just mentioned, the cleaning, tracing, contact tracing, and all of those policies combined, many of those that are in the layers. If the answer is yes to those 3 questions, very simple to follow this guideline, and it takes you, as we're looking at it, to the right. And what that says is, if you can't read it, individuals can safely remain in normal in-person classroom settings and participate in extracurricular sport activities as long as they have no symptoms. So as long as those 3 things are in place, and so that would be a yes, it's very simple. Kids can stay in school. If it's a no, we go to the left. And then the next question that we have to follow on this spreadsheet is the contact vaccinated? If yes, then we go to those middle blue boxes. Contact is recommended to wear a mask indoors as much as possible, either for 14 days or until they receive a negative viral test performed 3 to 5 days after exposure. Vaccinated individuals can remain in the normal in-person classroom setting and participate in extracurriculars and sport activities as long as they have no symptoms. If they test positive, they should isolate for at least 10 days from the date of the positive test. If the answer is no to that, is the contact vaccinated? Then we proceed to, did the contact consistently wear a mask? If yes, the contact is recommended to wear a mask indoor, the bottom blue box, I'm sorry, as much as possible, either for 14 days or until 7 days if they receive a negative viral test performed at least 5 days after exposure. They can remain in the normal classroom, in classroom setting and participate in extracurricular and sport activities as long as they have no symptoms. And if they test positive, they should isolate for 10 days from the date of the positive test. So if the answer is no, then the contact is recommended to follow a normal quarantine procedure as outlined below. They should not attend in-person school. They should not participate in sports or extracurricular activities, and they can return to normal classroom and extracurricular activities after 7 days if they received a negative viral test that was performed 5 days after the exposure. If they test positive, they should isolate for at least 10 days from the date of the positive test. Now this comes, and I had to cut it off in order to get this large enough for you to see it, but this is from the Ohio Department of Health. So this is ODH that's sending this to us. And so to summarize, again, if the goal is to keep kids in school, and that is the goal of both from the education side and from the parental side, then it's very simple to follow this guideline, say, you know, vaccinated or unvaccinated, my kid's gonna be able to stay in school if they're wearing a mask. So that was shared, that's been shared with us. There's a number of other documents that have been shared, but for time's sake, you know, I wanted to make sure because this was shown because I think it's a very important way to understand what ODH is suggesting. So for people that are wondering, well, what will we do when students return? Pretty simple. We're going to contain and continue to maintain social distancing at all times when possible. We're going to continue the hand washing. We're going to remind students to sneeze or cough in their elbow. We're going to continue to clean and sanitize throughout the day. Ventilation in the classroom will be a priority. Staying home when sick. And finally there, one of the things that's out of our control is that masks are required on buses. But again, this mirrors the layers that the Wood County Health Department has recommended for us to have a successful year. And successful means keeping our kids in school. And that has been the goal of this board, I believe. I think I can speak for the board. That's our goal, is to make sure that we can keep kids in school and we can keep them as healthy as possible. So that concludes my superintendent's report, but I know we'll probably come back to that. I'm sorry, there's one more slide. I just want to share the last 2 days. This is something that I do every day, but I wanted to give you the most current data. So by the numbers, the last 2 weeks, and these are August 16th, and that's taking the time period of the previous 2 weeks as of August 16th. We had 26 active cases in 43402, and that basically came out to approximately 81 to 100,000 spread. Then today, and this is updated every day on the Wood County Health Department's website, today's active cases in the past 2 weeks is 32 in the 43402, which raised our incidence level to 99 per 100,000. Now, once we get to the 100 plus per 100,000, that puts us in the red. And you're probably familiar with that. If you're not, go to the Wood County Health Department website, and they have a really nice, under the tab COVID-19 information, you get all this information. So we monitor this every day, and we watch this, and certainly when we get back to school, we're going to watch it even more closely than we do already. Some of the other information that I didn't include on this slide, but I think it's important. In Wood County, ages 12 to 19, 40% of our students are fully vaccinated in Wood County. In the 43402, ages 12 and up, 63% of the people eligible have had at least one vaccination. So those are pretty good numbers. So to your point, President Gear, you know, a lot of people here in the 43402 are taking advantage of the opportunity. And that concludes my report.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? I mean, hopefully that kind of seems pretty clear.
How many cases have we had since we've been back in sports and BGCS?
I believe we've only had one case, and that was early. And that was him through the health department. But one that I know of at this point. So we're basically looking at classroom exposure. We can't control what happens outside of our schools, you know, so what kids do on the weekends, or you know, what their families do, but certainly the guidelines pretty much tell you what you need to do. The layers are there for a reason, and that'll help make a successful school year.
Thank you, thank you, Francis. At this time, we move into our committee reports. Do we have a report from the facilities committee?
Yeah, last night we began to meet with the core advisory group to really start to look at a process in which we're going to look at the buildings, determines a needs assessment, go through visioning exercises to really look at where we want to be as a district. We're trying to pull in perspectives from all over, even some that were in opposition of past endeavors that we may have gone after. I think this core advisory committee will then expand and it'll expand out to, again, really a cross section of different views in terms of what we want to do with our facilities. That will then, from that group, will grow to an open community meeting, at least one, probably two of those, to where the entire community will be invited and to listen a little bit more of the advanced work that we've been doing with this. And again, I think we had a meeting last night. Our next meeting is in 2 weeks. And I believe we are looking to meet regularly and just to keep everyone updated and keep this moving along. Just to again, we want to make sure that we're doing the best things for our facilities and our communities.
Thank you. Are there any other committee reports at this time?
Just want to remind everybody that trivia night is in November 6th, I believe. So get your teams together and support the One Reed School Foundation.
Any other committee reports? This time then we would ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the special meetings of July 8, July 19, and the regular meeting of July 20.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Jimmy Stewart,
Yes.
Brian Myers,
Yes.
Tracy Hovis.
Yes.
Jill Carr,
Yes.
Norman Gear.
Yes. Motion passes. Next is the approval of the listing of expenditures and improvements made through July 1 to July 31st, the now and then payments and the treasurer's monthly report. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Jill Carr,
Yes.
Tracy Hovis.
Yes.
Jimmy Stewart.
Yes.
Brian Myers,
Yes.
Norman Gear.
Yes. Next, superintendent has some recommendations with regard to personnel.
Thank you. First, under certificated personnel, we have a retirement at Diesel Jacko at the high school, that's effective August 1st. We have auxiliary service non-pub allocation federal funds personnel for the 21-22 school year for St. Al's, St. Louis, BG Christian Academy, and those people are listed. There's different areas. And then item 3, we have the educational advancement for the 21-22 school year. And those teachers have earned that educational advancement. Item 4, the employment 21-22 school year, 10 salary placement pending completion of all required certification documentation of 2 intervention specialists at the elementary level. Item 5, under professional development, we have the math curriculum training, August 4th and 5th, $15 per day, paid from Title II-A fund for the 21-22 school year for Ron Villegas. Item B, math curriculum training, August 9th, $115 a day paid from Title II funds for the 21-22 school year for events and meets. And then item C, the new math curriculum professional development intervention teachers K-5, August 4th, 2021 full day and August 5th half day. $115 for the full day, $57.50 for the half day, paid from the Title II funds. Catherine Rowe is listed there. Item 6, we have supplemental contracts. We have a resignation of Sarah Compton as Key Club co-advisor and SAB co-advisor effective August 4th. We have the employment co-advisor for Key Club, SAB, and also the Model UN advisor. In addition, middle school athletic director, coaches of cross country, 7th and 8th grade, 7th grade football, 7th and 8th grade volleyball, quiz bowl, cheerleading, and LPDC. Item 7, contract adjustment for Betty Zerzik, and she's a remedial tutor. And she was approved at the July 21st as a remedial tutor, and that she'll be moving to a long-term sub position. And the temporary transfers to cover leave of absence approximately August 20th through October 25th of 2021. And that is a per diem of $219.59. Item 8 is the employment for the 21-22 correction, and that is Joanne Shemp, Spanish at the high school. And then item 9, resident educator mentor program, mentor and mentees pay, that's exhibit 3. Item 10, salary placement based on obtaining sub-licensure. We have 3 individuals listed there, and they will be paid $129 per day for days 1 through 60, $219.57 for days 61 to 84 until proper licensure is obtained. Item B, support personnel. Auxiliary service funds, personnel for 21-22 school year, and again, St. Louis and St. Al's. Item 2 is the employment of food service cashier workers at Kenwood Middle School and High School. Item 3 is the transportation substitutes 21-22 school year at $16.62 for the regular route and $16.30 for an extra trip. Hours to be determined by our Director of Transportation. Item C, other personnel, remedial tutors for the 21-22 school year, and that is contracted tutor rate. We have a remedial tutor at the high school, 19 hours per week. And that's basically to cover Betty Zerzik's temporary transfer, Laura Egley, remedial tutor at the middle school, and Catherine Bonnert, remedial tutor at the middle school. Number 2, study hall monitor for the high school as needed, 21-22 school year, student teacher calendar, student teacher calendar, $13.97 per hour, effective August 20th. Item 3 is the in-school suspension monitor at the high school as needed, and that's $12.69 per hour, effective August 20th. And student activity contracts for the 21-22 school year, occasional employees and paid contractual positions, 8th grade football, 7th grade football, and also another 8th grade football. Okay. Item D, unclassified 1 personnel. We have a human resource generalist that we're recommending for approval, and that's a 253-day contract effective August 16th of 2021. We have 2 leave of absences with the dates listed. Unclassified 2, we have nurses for the 21-22 school year paid from student wellness and success funds for fiscal year 21. 184 days, 7 days, 7 hours a day, $20.60. And finally, under administrative personnel, a contract adjustment for our transportation director, beginning with the 21-22 school year.
Do I have a motion to approve the personnel recommendations of the superintendent?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion?
I have a question about the study hall monitor and in-school suspension. They don't come every day, correct? Like, do we just call them in, or how does that work?
In-school suspension is as needed. So if kids are behaving themselves, yeah, shouldn't get called in. Study hall is just as needed based on class schedules. I would like to thank Decel Jacko for her years of service to the district. Not only did she do a great job with our intervention specialist, or as an intervention specialist, but she's also, her and her husband were in charge of our Dear Santa. And those are big shoes. They're gonna have to be filled by somebody because they've done a great job with that Dear Santa program. So we want to thank her and wish her well in her retirement.
Any further discussion? If not, could we have the roll call, please?
Thank you. Jenny Stewart. Yes. Jill Carr. Yes. Tracy Hobbs.
Yes.
Brian Myers.
Yes.
Norman Gear.
Yes. Next, under operations, we have requests from the treasurer.
Thank you. The first item is recommendation to approve the depository agreement with Union Bank Company. And the second item is to establish a fund for the technology fees that we're receiving now, Chromebooks and that initiative. Thank you.
Next, the superintendent has requests.
Okay, approval of the following agreements: a service agreement for 3 special needs students between Bowling Green City School District and Bittersweet Incorporated for the 21-22 school year, August 23rd through June 3rd. Item B, acceptance of the service agreement with the County Educational Service Center and the Bowling Green City School District for ATOD, that's alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, on-site services. Felicia Adi for the 21-22 school year, and that's 5 days of service per week. Item C, acceptance of the agreement for this Children Resource Center, CRC, and the Bowling Green City School for school-based mental health services for all children, elementary through high school for the 21-22 school year, July 1st of 21 through June 30th of 22, and that's paid for from Student Wellness and Success Funds fiscal year 20. D, approval of the program cost agreement between the Educational Service Center of Lake Erie West and Bowling Green City Schools for audiology services for St. Louis Catholic School for the 21-22 school year. That's effective August 1st of 21 through June 30th of 22. Item E, an agreement between the Wood County Board of Developmental Disabilities and the Bowling Green Board of Education to provide a contract for special education and related services provided to PG students effective for the 21-22 school year. Item F is a service agreement between Wood County Educational Service Center and Wood County, and Bowling Green City Schools for speech pathology services for St. Louis School 21-22 school year. Authorization to contract with parent for transportation, 50% parent, 50% BGCS for the 21-22 school year for 2 special needs students to attend the Ohio School for the Blind in Columbus, Ohio. Item 3, review and adopt the following revised replacement policies, and that's the unclassified one, terms of employment. Policy 4410, and then the acceptance of the following gifts. We have $500 to the Bowling Green High School Principal Fund. That's from Meyer. $500 to the Bowling Green Middle School Principal Fund. That's also from Meyer. School supplies and backpacks valued at $500 to Bowling Green City Schools from an anonymous source. School supplies and backpacks valued at $800 to Bowling Green City Schools from Edward Jones Annual School Supply Donation Drive. Kevin Cochran, Amber Larson, Julie Eichel, Chad Plotz, Roxanne Peckham, Jeff Fallon, Susan McDonough, I apologize, Christy Harden, Dave Boyd, and Luann Michaelis. Masks donated to the Bowling Green City Schools, valued at $5,000, the BG Christian Food Pantry, and Todd and Heather Saylor. Lunch stacks valued at $100 to the Bowling Green City Schools, Eileen Underwood and Rich Rollins, making this month's total donations $7,400. And we can't thank those individuals enough for their support of our schools. Item 5 is the approval of request for student trips. Travel to the competition trip by the Mountain UN students to attend a 4-day conference in Chicago, Illinois, February 3rd of 22 to February 6th. Mary Kern is the advisor, and the costs are paid via student fundraisers, student payments, and club funds. And then finally, admission of a foreign exchange student for the 21-22 school year. That is through AYUSA academic year in the US. And that's middle school, no, that's Ms. Pia Santos Villa from Spain. And the host family is Julia Sane.
Do we have a motion to approve the request of the treasurer and the superintendent? Second.
Second.
Discussion? We have a vote, please.
Tracy Hovis,
Yes.
Brian Myers,
Yes.
Jenny Stewart. Yes. Jill Carr,
Yes.
Norman Gear.
Yes. At this time, we would also ask that we have a motion to renew the contract of Kathy Schuler, treasurer, for 3 years, beginning August 1, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? I would just add that we're happy to have you, Kathy. Thank you. We have a vote.
Jenny Stewart,
Yes.
Jill Carr,
Yes.
Tracy Hovis.
Yes.
Brian Myers,
Yes.
Norman Gear.
Yes. Next.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Next, we have the opportunity for the board or the public to present additional items. We have 2 people that have signed up to address the board. Having a little trouble reading Jim's last name.
It's Tim, sexually.
Okay, Tim, would you spell that for us when you address the board, please?
Sure. STECHSCHULT.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I'm just here as a concerned citizen. I don't have any kids in the school district, but I'm very concerned about the health. And I'm going to just share just a few things with you. I'm not going to take much time, but I think the facts speak for themselves. And everything that I'm going to share with you in just about 2 minutes, these are all facts that you can look up. And I would encourage everybody to please don't take my word for it. I just want exposure. I want transparency. I want somebody to check it out. Fact number 1, a child in America is 66,667 times more likely to be sold to human traffickers than to die of COVID-19. 6 Florida parents sent their kids masks
after 8 hours of wearing them to Florida Mass Spectrometry Research and Education Center. This is fairly recently. You can look all this up. I'll provide all the information. 5 of the 6 masks were contaminated with bacteria, parasites, and fungi. 3 of the 6 masks had dangerous pathogenic and pneumonia-causing bacteria. So we know that the masks breed moisture, and these are causing a lot of problems. They're finding more and more issues with them. And ironically, no coronaviruses were found on any of the 6 masks. And this was a small sample size, but I think for what they found, it speaks volumes. We keep saying we're all about the science, and I'm all about the science. And I would encourage everybody to go to ohiostandsup.org. I'm going to leave this pamphlet. These are research people that have done hundreds and thousands of hours worth of research. They have data. This little pamphlet that I'm going to hand you, everything's got hyperlinks, it's got facts, it's got numbers, and basically just this one pamphlet is masks don't work. And it goes into the science behind it. And it says, obviously, that people should not be wearing masks. It gives 8 to 10 bullet points for that. It goes into the CO2 levels, it goes into a lot of the data. So I'm not going to bore everybody with it. I know everybody's kind of in their own camps on this, and sometimes talk too long, you're not heard. And I'm concerned. And the last thing I want to share, the back page, masks don't work, key quotes. And the page is full of these are hyperlinks. You can go look at the time it was said, when it was said, where it was said, where it was written. And I don't know if anybody's heard any of these organizations or not. And I'm only going to list about a third of them. FDA, CDC, there's no scientific evidence for healthy people wearing masks. Here's a hyperlink. U.S. Surgeon General Jerome Adams. I don't know if anybody's heard of this guy, somebody named Dr. Anthony Fauci. He's got quotes. No need for masks. The WHO, World Health, not the band. And one of the other ones, U.S. Department of Labor, OSHA. So they've all got the details, they got the evidence. I'd be open to looking at evidence on the other side. I don't know what BG School has for documentation that says the masks that are provided, the masks that are kids wearing, have ample micron size to catch the virus. Everything I'm seeing, they don't. And I've never seen any study in the United States that says, here's direct evidence, like I'm going to leave you with, that says these masks are actually catching it. So, again, I'm not going to belabor it, but I'm going to leave this what you think.
Thank you. Next, Paul Tyson.
Paul Tyson, work for, I got kids in 619 Normandy. I've got kids in high school, I've already sent an email, shared some information with you. What else I did was I printed off everything right here. And this is other stuff that wasn't just in the email. I'll do this with you, that way all of you have a reference, because I know if you, I'm hoping you decide not to mandate masks at all times, I'll recommend against it. But if you don't, I know you want to get pressure from people that want masks. And what these are is I've broken down into 2 categories. I've got all the studies, research, clinical research from physicians, doctors. I've got newspaper articles. I've got compilations of it. This is about 8 right here. And this includes such things as noting that they've done studies in Japan, testing for transmission of influenza in the cold while wearing masks. no difference. We've got in here a couple of things that were done in Canada, which I did send to all of you also, reference a couple of hospitals had told their nurses you have to wear a mask to get a vaccine. They ended up taking this to court. The arbitrator asked for all the evidence. The hospitals weren't able to provide any evidence stating masks do anything. They were both tossed out. Got in here also issues with our instances where gushing media support for places that want to use the masks. Israel, Germany, Japan, Czech Republic, Los Angeles, forget the other. But shortly after they went to the mask mandates, cases went up. That's 80 in the ineffective. And the harmful, bring my readers up here with me, shame on me, I want to say it's 63. 63 different things that showed it was harmful. Now, this includes the study, the parents, Mr. Speccioli talked about in Florida. But some of this you also have to piece together. There are different studies in here where at one point prior to all this happening, there was a push for doctors to stop wearing masks on long, complicated surgeries because they were finding a lack of oxygen, headaches, migraines, inability to focus. And the question was, for a guy who's operating on it for 7 hours, you kind of want him to be mentally at his best as opposed to starting to lose a little bit. There's an invention in here where to get around that, we're trying to invent a mask that would pipe in good, solid, clean air and pipe out bad air. It still wasn't perfected. Some of the other things you have to connect the dots. The Fauci paper is in here, where he and another person concluded that the Spanish flu, I believe the Hong Kong flu of the 60s, the major killer was most likely bacterial pneumonia. Bacterial pneumonia. Following up with that, there's another thing in here stating a doctor noticing bacterial pneumonia is now on the rise. And again, this is connect the dots. One of the things that was found on those masks in Florida, bacterial pneumonia. There's also a writing in here from I forget if he's a doctor, he's at least a chemist that works with working with medicines, the pharmaceutical, that he has to do the protective gear. He knows the masks catch bacteria. We are better at fighting virus than we are bacteria. It also includes 2 studies in here, the Danish study, where they did a randomized control trial and found that masks didn't do anything. That study and another study that most of you probably never heard about was Marines. Marines in a base, volunteers. Strict quarantine, strict social distancing, strict masking, all of that observed. Got it, and it spread. Those are the only 2 studies we have directly related to coronavirus, the current coronavirus and masking, and they both showed that it didn't work. I'm going to leave this with you, and like I said, that's for anyone to come in. I gave you tabs. I didn't break the tabs for belonging to finance or coming in, so there was no way I was but
Thank you, Paul.
that's all I got. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We would now move into the opportunity for the board to present additional items.
While we're on the topic of masking, I'd actually like to ask Mr. Scrooge, based on the information here and some of the things we've heard, you have a recommendation that you'd like to go with?
Yeah, a week ago, I sent parents a letter outlining that, we, at that given moment, looking at the numbers, that we would start the school year in mask option and allow parents to make those decisions. As you know, we've got feedback, both negative and positive. And while that's important, and it's important for people to be heard, we still have to follow the recommendations of our health experts and what they're saying. And I know that throughout the summer, as we met with Wood County Health Department, and when I say we, the school districts, leadership, superintendents from each of the districts, we had a lot of discussion over, which way to go, and tried to stay together. Wanted to have a unified front. As we're getting closer to school, and we're seeing the numbers change. I think the likelihood of us staying on the same page is going to be very slim. Everybody has to go back to doing what's best for their community. Talking to one of our neighboring school districts, it's been stated over and over again, this virus doesn't affect young children or younger students. One of our neighboring districts has 5 students, 3 in the elementary, who have tested positive for COVID. Every night, superintendents that have to make decisions, board of education that have to make decisions, have to be able to look themselves in the mirror and know that they did what was best and what they thought was healthiest and safest for not only our kids, but our staff and certainly our families. One of my other colleagues at a board meeting was told by a parent that it would be his burden to bear when the child dies because he didn't mandate masks. While that statement strikes a chord with all of us, it's a very unfair statement. Because I don't think there's a superintendent or board of education that would ever want to put children or families or staff at risk or in jeopardy. So this has been difficult, and I want to tell you, it was certainly was no picnic last year. Making a decision on what we thought was best, and we stayed with that decision, and we were criticized, crucified, and chastised for it. And so here we are again. The governor today says it's too late to mandate masks. I'm not sure it's ever too late to mandate masks. A mask is kind of like when we get in our car and we put the seatbelt on. The seatbelt doesn't guarantee that we're not going to die from a car accident, but it increases our chances to live. A mask can be very similar. It's not going to keep us necessarily. Mr. Tyson's information, I'm sure there's data that can say that. They can support what he said. But a mask isn't going to stop us necessarily from getting COVID, but it is a layer that helps us not to get it with all those other layers. And so when we look at it and we, and I've got to make a recommendation to you. I look at our most vulnerable group. Those are the kids under the age of 12. They've not had the opportunity to get vaccinated. They haven't. And hopefully here this year they have that chance. And as I said, in Wood County, 40% over the age of 12 to 19-year-olds are vaccinated. That's a pretty good number. Certainly not where we need to be, but if you believe in vaccinations. So, Mr. Meyer, when you asked me, do I have a recommendation? My recommendation at this time, based on what we know today, numbers that we see today, and what we're going to have coming to our buildings next week, my recommendation would be that we require masks for anyone under the age of 12, so that'd be our K-5 population, and that I would maintain the mask optional and allow parents to make that decision at our secondary level. I would also say that we'll continue to monitor, and if the numbers continue to grow or we see a trend in our community, this may be taken out of our hands at some point, but certainly I'm going to monitor for the health and safety and protection of our secondary students as well. Thank you.
We can either have a discussion about the recommendations, or we can move on to a motion to accept them. Well, what's the opinion of the board?
I'd like to have a conversation.
Okay. Conversation is good. Who would like to start?
Since I said I wanted to have a conversation, I agree next time. First off, thank you, Mr. Scucci, for going through that, and also thank you for the people that spoke up. I'm hearing the same things up in my neck of the woods, and this has been probably one of the toughest things. Obviously, I've been pretty opinionated on the getting back to school and all of that last year, and so thankful that's behind us. The one thing I do know is that, and I don't use strong words very often, but I hate these things. I absolutely hate these things. But I absolutely hated our students being out of school last year. I think anyone that watched the board meeting with me on it knew that. I sat at home with my kids. They were home and watched the difficulties they had. I hated it. And when I look at the recommendations up there with the Wood County Health Department, and look at what the quarantine guidelines are going to be, and again, going back to this flow chart, this is going to be very easy to knock kids right out of school for weeks, and it's not going to take a whole lot. At least with the 12 and over and the vaccinated piece of this, again, when I look at this, if you're vaccinated, that puts you right into the blue, and so the 12 and older have that opportunity to do that. But when I think of mine, and again, both of my children are under 12. I was going to send them with masks. I know they hate it. They were really upset with me when I had that conversation with them. But I can't afford them to be knocked out of school due to an exposure, but for 1-2 weeks at a time. And so, as much as I hate these things, I have to do my part to try and keep kids in school. And so I would be supportive of that.
Anyone else?
You used the word hate, and the one thing I hate is that the scientists behind all of this, the Ohio Director of Health, our own Wood County Health Director, everybody pushes this issue to the school boards. And they are the professionals, and all they'll do is recommend. But yet we are up here deciding whether to mandate, but none of them will come out and do it themselves. And I struggle because it's kind of like people who have concealed carries. We don't ask everybody to have a concealed carry. Why? Because it's a personal choice. But if everybody needs to protect me, they should technically have a CCW. Because that's in essence what masks are being asked of people to do. You have to wear a mask to protect me. I don't have to wear a mask to protect me. You have to wear a mask to protect me. And I struggle with that because, getting the vaccine is a hard decision in itself. Because we don't know the long-term effects of that. We don't know, as Mr. Tyson pointed out, are the negative effects of masks long-lasting? And I just hate the hypocrisy that is needed. We're gonna have Rally on the Main, or we're gonna have hundreds of college kids and community members in one space. We're having the Wood County Fair, we had that, we're gonna have tractor pull. And I hate that the burden of this pandemic keeps falling on the backs of our children. And I'm over it. I'm sick of watching our kids be the ones that have to save this community. I'm sick of it, because it's not their job. I don't like wearing a mask. If somebody wants me to wear a mask because it makes them more comfortable, I'm being courteous and respectful of that. But when we just spent a maskless summer and people were on vacation posting pictures, and then we get emails from those same people that say, mandate masks. You won't even put your kid in a mask at the Wood County Fair, but I'm supposed to mandate it for a school? That is frustrating, and that is what I hate. This should not fall on the backs of our kids or on the school board. And I struggle because I do want to protect kids. That's why I'm a teacher, that's why I'm on this board, but it's not just our responsibility.
I couldn't say anything better than what Tracy just said. I am so concerned about our younger children with no vaccine available to them, and we still have to put them in the same environment, provide them with their education, and yet parents can't make the decision to have them vaccinated because we just don't have that yet. We know that children can be carriers, so we have to protect the older kids from the younger kids because they're not being vaccinated yet. And these are the kinds of things that all of us at this table lose sleep over every night. And then we get up in the morning and read the newspaper and the editorials and all the names we get called and all the things we get accused of because we're trying to keep kids and teachers safe. So based on that, I fully support Mr. Scucci's recommendation.
I really don't have much more to add. I think between these three board members, they've said what I would have said. I agree with all of them. It's time that we allow the kids and the families that have been vaccinated to go into our middle and our high schools. But these kids have not had the opportunity, and their families have not had the opportunity to be vaccinated. And I would never tell anyone that they should be vaccinated. I would prefer that everyone is vaccinated because I think it's the responsible thing to do. But until these kids have the opportunity and their parents have the opportunity to choose, I want our kids in school. And I agree with Tracy. We've had so many people say, listen to this, listen to that, listen to this. And they won't make a definitive statement. You all, this whole community expects us to make a definitive statement. And my definitive statement is, if the kids have been vaccinated in our middle and our high school, at least their parents have had the opportunity to choose. In our elementary school, the parents have not had the opportunity to choose. So I would like to support Superintendent Scucci, knowing that we follow the numbers from the health department. And if things get better, we can pivot, we can change, just like Superintendent Scucci had to do with the letter. When he wrote the letter, it made sense. And within 2 weeks, the numbers have gotten right back to practically where we were when we shut our schools down, and I can't reconcile that either. I feel hypocritical if 1 year we do one thing and the next year we do another. And I feel like this is a happy medium of walking the talk that we walked, but getting our kids back in school. And I listened to the press conference yesterday for the health department, and I had to ask twice, and then I asked Francis again if I heard this right. If your kid is in a mask in our schools and the child next to him tests positive, if your child has been in a mask, they get to stay in class. But that's going to be the parents' decision what they do with their kids at that point, the ones who are in our middle and our high school. But I'm certainly not willing to put three classes of elementary school kids in what I consider to be at risk. And our teachers and our staff and our principals as well, they want to be in school. They want to be teaching their kids. They've told me that. And they're excited. And if that's what I can do for our kids and our teachers, then that's what I'm gonna do. So I support it wholeheartedly, Francis.
I do want to say though, I appreciate the time and the research that went on in that. And I would urge you to also get that to Ben Robeson at the Wood County Health Board, because a lot of the stuff we're getting guidance from him on. And again, we didn't have this. I'm looking at this as an either or kind of thing, like I have to have kids in schools this year. And I'll be darned if I'm try to make a decision on here where it's gonna risk classes or students being knocked out of school. I don't think our community can take that. I don't think parents can take that. I don't think our learning loss that we had last year can get any worse. And that gap can get any bigger. We have to have kids in school, and that's what it comes down to.
Any further comments? I would just state the obvious, that this is a community effort. We have to do it as a community. We can't do it as a school board, we can't do it as the health commissioner, we can't do a superintendent, we can't even do it as parents alone. We have to do it as a community, and figuring out the best way to keep our kids safe and keeping our schools open is our priority. Any further discussion?
I just want to make sure that we're clear on the recommendation for secondary.
One can hear you too.
Okay. Just want to make it clear, because in the past, it for one reason or another was not clear. This recommendation for secondary, making masks optional, that is vaccinated or unvaccinated. We can't ask, nor do they have to say. So I just want to make sure that's clear, because probably by now I already have an email with someone's asking that question for clarification. So I'd rather make it clear here, make sure that as a board, we're all on the same page on that. And to try to correct it later.
I would also like to add that I'd like to give you the opportunity to take us in and out of these mask requirements, because I don't feel like we should have to come to this week for a special board meeting with the way the numbers are changing. I'm hopeful that if we do this, that we're gonna see not a lot of spread at the secondary level, and that numbers will go down a little bit, and maybe we can get these masks off our elementary students. That's my hope. I don't want them on there. I just need students in school. So I would like to, I don't know if we need a resolution for that, but I'd like to give you the authority to be able to do that, because it is a day-by-day basis.
I agree. I was gonna suggest the same thing. You don't need a meeting. You can let us know how it's going. We're all following it. I know I'm following it. And I trust that you will do the right thing, and you don't want these kids in masks and leaving school and quarantine any more than anyone else does. So when you feel the time is right, I'm fine with you making that decision. If I don't, you know me, if I don't agree, I'll let you know.
I need to know too that we're not gonna be canceling school because it's too hot. Because these kids are in masks. And that there's gonna be plenty of mask breaks that are allowed and given throughout the day. Because if we're trying to keep kids in school, it defeats the purpose to cancel school because they're in masks, because it's too hot in the buildings. So we can't say we want kids in school and then cancel school. So can you assure me of that?
I can assure you that we're not gonna have 12 feet of snow. And to put kids at, again, you know, when I make decisions to cancel school, it's because of the welfare of students. And if one day we have a heat index that's 100 or 95 or 98 or 102, do you really think that I should send kids into 3 buildings that classroom temperatures get to 110, 115? That's not safe. So if my philosophy has always been keep our kids as safe as possible. I would tell you that I'm not going to cancel school if you can guarantee me we're going to have cool weather all fall. But we have 3 buildings that limit that opportunity for me. And you know, I see high school people here, I see Kenwood people here and Caveat people here. I can guarantee you that, you know, the last thing any of us want to do is cancel school. But if the conditions are such that puts everybody in a situation, you know, I hear what you're saying. I honestly don't think I can guarantee that because I don't know what tomorrow's going to be like. It's just like when we get into the winter. If we have, you know, Toby and I drive the roads in the morning when he wakes me up. Right, Toby? If we have, you know, bad roads, we cancel. We don't want to cancel, but we know the alternative of putting buses on the road, teenage drivers on the road, it's not safe.
What I don't want is that because kids are in masks, you're canceling school
It's
because
not
it's
gonna be-
too hot.
No, it's not gonna be because of masks. It's gonna be because the conditions aren't safe. I can assure you that. And if I misunderstood that,
Yeah, that's what I.
Okay. I-
Because
I
last year,
misunderstood.
you
Yeah.
know,
Well, at the end
because
of
they
the
were
year,
so hot, kids in masks.
at the end of the year, we were just trying to get to the finish line. We were just trying to appease as many people as we could and try to just get through the last 10 days.
I know what it's like to be in 115 room, like I get it, but I just don't want masks to be the reason it's too hot.
I think it also needs to be said, though, that yes, we have to get through this last hot season, but we have full intentions of having the buildings air conditioned by next spring, at least the vast majority of those. So again, it's just trying to get through this last hot season here in the fall too. So I just wanted to make sure that that was stated.
Francis, how would you be able to monitor the situation and adjust what sort of indexes would you look at?
So I mean, we're gonna be constantly in contact with Wood County Health Department. Just because summer's over does not mean we're not meeting on a regular basis, and you know, we're gonna be monitoring the numbers and, you know, and looking at it. If we can continually stay in that red area, you know, conditions are dictating. But I think as we look at this and get into it, you know, if we're in red for 2 days and then we go into orange, you know, I don't necessarily say that, I wouldn't say that, hey, okay, we're back to no masks. Because we could jump back to red. It's gonna be over that 2-week period and a consistency so that we're not flip-flopping day to day, and because that creates issues. I think we have the ability to require masks at the K through 5 buildings. And I think we can, you know, our staff will do a good job at that. You know, again, we'll just monitor it on a daily basis and we'll take chunks of time to make sure that we're not doing the flip flops.
Can we encourage our elementary students, you know, if we go through this, to get as many mask breaks as possible? Just going.
You know, I leave that to our building principals and staff to figure out that, you know, when and how they can make that available.
When they're outside, do they have to wear masks for recess? What about lunches? Is it gonna be similar to last year?
And lunches will maintain the social distancing that we can, but, you know, that's one time when the kids have their masks on, eating and drinking.
I think we would also like for you to have the opportunity or ability to take more protective measures if the situation gets bad. And that would probably include masking secondary schools. We have your recommendation, and the recommendation is pretty simple, at least initially. It's require masks for kids under age 12, and it's optional for secondary students. But we also want to authorize you to act without coming to the board based upon situation and conditions. Do you think that's a condition we want to put into the motion?
I'm fine with it. Me too.
Would someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we have mandatory masking for our K through 5 students and optional masking for our middle and high school students, all of this based on as needed, meaning that we will be as flexible as we can as conditions change. And we will leave the determination up to Superintendent Scrucci to monitor these conditions and to keep the board informed as to what he's doing, but to make these decisions and inform his building principals and staff as to what his decisions are, as well as parents. I think it's important that he keeps parents informed as to how things are going in our schools.
Question on that, do you want that to be under the age of 12 or K through 5?
Well, K through 5, I don't know how many 12-year-olds we might have in 5th grade. But if you've got a child in 5th grade and he's had a vaccination, I mean, you guys tell us, you're the elementary school building people. Do we have a lot of 12-year-olds in 5th grade?
No.
Most of them hit 12 and all of the 6th grade.
Right, in the 6th grade,
You
so,
might have 6th grade, 11.
yeah, so
That's all my son's starting on.
I think. I don't want to word this, is it 11 and under? Except if we have 11-year-olds in middle school.
Francis, do you have a suggestion on this?
I guess the clearest way to make it is, we know that students 11 years of age and under cannot
Haven't
be
been
vaccinated.
vaccinated, that's what I'm
It's 12 and
thinking.
over that have the access, so,
Yeah, I agree.
so it'd be 11 years,
Yeah,
Under
11
the
years
age of
and
12.
younger.
under the age,
of
but not
12.
including 12.
Okay, under the age of 12. I think that works.
All right, Kathy.
Following this, Kathy?
Did you get all that?
Okay, so I have motion to have mandatory masks under the age of 12 and optional masking middle school and high school. We will be as flexible as possible based on conditions and give authorization for Superintendent Scrucci to make changes as needed. Does that cover everything?
Okay, do I have a second?
Second,
Any more discussion on this?
Can, based off some of the information that was presented tonight, is that something that maybe we could at least address with Mr. Robeson in terms of mask hygiene? And if that's something that he can give us maybe a little bit of guidance on, that we can include that as part of our safety measures, part of our layers.
Could we have a vote, please?
Thank you. Jenny Stewart?
Yes.
Jill Carr?
yes.
Tracy Hobest?
Yes, I don't like it, but I'll support it.
You know that.
Ryan Muller?
Yes, I know that.
Yes.
Norman Gear?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Any further business to come before the board? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Discussion? Call the vote, please.
Tracy Morvis,
Yes.
Jenny Stewart. Yes. Brian Myers,
Yes.
Jill Carr.
Yes.
Norman Gear.
Yes. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.